Welcome back, everybody. This is Ian here, coming at you for a review of Legion Episode 6 of Season 2. This is our Chapter 14, aka the episode that let me down. As if I'd ever thought I'd say that. Ever thought I'd say that about this season, but this is the one that did it. And I want to tell you why. And why I'm surprised it even ventured on those grounds. But as always, knocking this out of the way first, there's spoilers in those waters ahead. So if you're looking at this elsewhere, if you're waiting to see this in some kind of streaming service, all of that good jazz, you've been warned right here. If you want to hear more, though, stay plugged in. So here we go, right after David's declaration of war against Amal Farouk at the end of the last episode, Chapter 5. What a trip that was. Finding out what happened to his sister, seeing what Farouk's journey was all about, all of this about the Shadow King ultimately trying to find his body, get reunited with that, and cause some genuine havoc, seeing Lenny come back. Man, revelation after revelation. We have an episode here that, in my opinion, is something that I really would have thought we would have seen right at the beginning of the season. It's a very introspective episode that really centers around David, down to the titling of this one, What Could Have Been. And that's really what this is about, what could have been. It's a mirror of parallels for all the different possibilities. So I guess you can call this the David's Technicolor Dreamcoat, or the David of Many Faces, whatever floats your boat. But here we have essentially a huge just layout here, a whole panel, a collage, effectively, for David and the other possibilities that never came to fruition, that the path his life could have followed. We have an elderly David, a homeless David, a billionaire David, a suburbanite David with 2.3 kids, as he called it, the main line story David, that we have up to this point. That's tied up a little later in the episode, and everything's sort of branches back into that. And really, this is an introspective on what David would be if he lived just truly contained, always trying to fit in, trying to do the things that the conventions of the world, the way we'd measure success or falling short of success. And David walking through all those situations, all those separate circumstances, really always ends up tortured in some way, either by himself, either persecuted by others, or whether it's through physical means like financial manipulation. I'll take a look at that soon. Or being tracked down by Division 3 and law enforcement, or those who were trying to stamp out mutants. So we basically open right up with we don't even have the standard intro that we always have about talking about an idea, or the ways it can be infectious, or the ways it can go downhill, or any of that. We go straight into looking at David's life through different lenses. And I think the killer about this one, for me at least, for following this season as much as I loved it, this really feels like where our momentum stops on a dime. One thing Legion has able to do really well this season is sort of keep that bullet line of story progression going straight forward. We no matter how crazy things got, you always had that kind of pillar to jump back on, to fall back on, that knowing the story's moving forward. The Shadow King's getting closer to his body. David's closer to finding the monk. We're closer to finding the source of the chattering teeth illness. Any way you want to frame that, we've had that mooring in our previous episodes, but not here. That's all sort of dissipated and dissolved, and we really just take this full look. And I understand the illustration of what's echoed at the end of the episode as well, about Farouk's words coming back, that we, then him and David, decide, or you decide what is real, your will and your will alone, and that's the power, the potency of that. I get it, but this really feels like ground that we've tracked before. And things that we understand up to this point. There feel like so many huge events that are about to go off. I understand a slight pause point beforehand, but to stop the kind of progress that we had up to this point, just sort of on its face, it felt kind of disjointed and really surprised me. But content-wise, though, seeing David use his abilities to manipulate others purposely. He becomes a billionaire after helping a firm. He talks a high-power CEO out of buying up a existing company that's having all kinds of faulty issues with the types of real estate they're selling. And this develops into him becoming a billionaire eventually. But obviously, there's others near him or in his life who just started to treat him differently. His sister just comes to him and asks him for a new home whenever she's having a problem or with her spouse or whatever's going on. And David just purposely reaches into everybody's mind to pull facts. And this is very much a David who is very conceited. David who sees himself as God's gift to the world. He pretty much even says, "I've been given a gift," and he wants the adoration, the worship of others around him, or the hate of others around him. He likes to be surrounded with this intention, this kind of attention. He just sort of basks in it. He uses his powers to give his sister a pretty bad nosebleed after she comes and asks for a new home after a fallout with her spouse, and David's just not dealing with it, not having any of it. He just tells her, look, you're sleeping around and doing your thing too, so I don't want to hear it. And he just ends that right on the dime. We also look at David as a homeless man who's lost everything, and the end of his life ends to Division 3 tracking him down, tracing where he is again. I suppose because of a mutant signature, and he ends up getting bisected by a katana. Freaking brutal, man. There's another ending where he dies, where he's sort of trying to fit in. His sister has become his caretaker. He tries to take a job doing like packaging, delivering, that kind of deal. And he's just stopped on a street one night. His powers get out of control. And, well, oh man, how do you describe that? He pretty much FedEx cardboard folds up a police officer till he explodes, wipes another 3 cop cars off the face of the world to the point where they just have just a burn shadow mark of where they were. But he is shot and he's killed after trying to defend himself from these officers. So, and then when he's a suburbanite, he ends up hanging himself because he can't stand the voices and everything that keep following him around. But anyway, all these separate stories tie us back in to the David that we know. When his sister admits him to the institution, she tells him it's going to be a temporary deal, but it really seems, of course, that there's a part of her that knows that she can't uphold that end of the bargain. She feels terrible about it. And we zone in on that, and then we start to go through a montage of everything we remember from season 1 and some of the things we built into with going into season 2 now that we know about David. So I guess what I'd expect from all this is some kind of centering or takeaway or something else that is fortifying his will to go against the Shadow King or to defy fate or whatever else that is. But I don't know. Look, this could become something more later, but just a simple stroll through all the different types of parallel looks of what David could be. And I even found it funny. The narrator narrating through this roughly is another parallel version of David talking about the idea of a multiverse or different versions of himself in parallel timelines, making decisions that cause more branches and branches and branches and branches. There's nothing here that jumps right back to where we were last episode with David curled on the floor, being held by New Lenny, I'll say, mourning the loss of his sister and swearing that he's gonna murder the Shadow King. There's nothing that comes back into our current situation. There's nothing that seems to alter the course of anything else that's happened. It's just really, as titled, a look at what you might have. So I felt a little empty coming out of this one. It felt like we built all this hype, and here we go. Here we stop. If anything, I thought we might get the introduction of maybe a different mutant or something else when during the timeline where he is killed as a homeless man, but no, we don't get any of that, or still any additional flashes of links to other things in Marvel, or links to Xavier, or anything else about the X-Men. Really surprising. Not as much the X-Men theme, but more just something broader to this ties into. So there were some, of course, funny moments. I think Office David was one of my favorite. He tries to keep himself awake by sniffing Whiteout, and he just spends at least a good chunk of his day hallucinating. He sees a singing mouse, and he's just entranced by it. And all kinds of other wacky, weird stuff that we've come to know this series for. But this one really peters out quick. We're really not going too many places with this, and that's it's a bummer to say. So, soundtrack and visuals, I'd say this one is more strongly supported by the visuals than the soundtrack. Not a whole lot happened there. We've got again some good tie-ins with themes and whatnot, so that's passable. It works for the content we have. But just overall as an episode, really not feeling this one. This is one I'm gonna actually give a 4 out of 10. I think just for the shock value of everything we've built up to this point, and again expecting to see something like this earlier in the season. So, man, fanboy bubble has been burst. Ugh. Well, what do you guys think? Those of you who checked it out, am I just missing something? Am I just jumping over the moon about this, and I'm missing an obvious fact that you saw? Hey, want to hear about it? Drop that in the comments, or hey, send me a line about it. Love to go more into it with you, but stay locked and stay tuned for keeping up with the rest of the season. Just so you know, there is going to be an extra episode added on to this season. I should have told you guys about that last week, but I left that in my notes, and I did put it in the weekly show. So anyway, just know that we do have an additional episode that's going to extend this out just a bit more, and we've got about 5 episodes left at this point. In any case, thank you all for listening. Peace out. Take it easy and have a good one. Hey people, thank you for tuning into this episode and taking a listen. If you like our content, if you like what you're listening to, there anything we go over, hey, please, we would not only love to hear more from you, but it's great if you could throw some support. You can subscribe right below. Also, you can toss us a line anytime. That's ksongmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can tune in for our channel anytime for movie reviews, game reviews, a lot of random wacky stuff. Who knows what you'll hear. And of course, our episode each week where we're bringing the nerdiest things we can find, dig up, and maybe not find. Maybe the stuff that just drops in our laps. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you again later. Take care.